Hello friends, welcome to Knowledge House. Right now we'll be looking into today's The Hindu newspaper, that is of the date 24th of August 2018. So as usual, we'll be looking to certain articles or we'll be only looking to certain articles that are important from a UPSC and various other competitive exams perspective. I welcome you all to this video. Let's start. The first article is regarding the center wants the Supreme Court to get tough with FB and YouTube. So, finding the efforts by the internet giants to curb the circulation of online videos of sexual violence and against women and children inadequate, the government is likely to seek stricter directions to the service providers such as Facebook and YouTube from the Supreme Court. The direction sought will include considerably reducing the time taken by the intermediary to comply with the content removal request under certain sections of the IT Act to less than 10 hours from the current less than 36 hours. So the government also wants the service providers be asked to employ agencies for identification and removal of sexually violent content, particularly videos relating to child pornography and rape, besides deploying proactive monitoring measures. Additionally, the government is also keen on intermediaries sharing certain data with law enforcement agencies to identify the origin of the content. So, anyway, let's look into or let's see what the Supreme Court is going to comment on this. And this will definitely have a privacy kind of dimension also. So, that's all important about this particular article. We are moving on to the next one. Kerala blames Tamil Nadu for floods. So, in an affidavit that was filed in response to a petition by a resident of Idiki highlighting the perils of a dangerously high water level in the British era dam, that is Mullaperia Dam, and the three-judge bench will start hearing the case on Friday. So, in an affidavit, Kerala government slammed the Tamil Nadu government for allegedly ignoring the repeated entreaties, that is repeated request for controlling the release of water from the reservoir to facilitate the evacuation of thousands living downstream. Kerala said the communications from its water resources secretary and the chairperson and the chairman of the supervisory committee on Mullaperia Dam to gradually release the water to at least 139 feet evoked no response, no positive assurance from Tamil Nadu. The request was made to facilitate the district administration and state disaster management authority to get sufficient time to evacuate people so that they would not be hit by the flash flood in their sleep in the stealth of the night. That's what Kerala Chief Secretary Tom Jose has informed the Supreme Court. Anyway, in a previous video, I have in a reasonably in-depth manner, I have analyzed what exactly is this Mullaperiyar issue and what's the tussle going on between the government of Kerala and Tamil Nadu in the water levels of this particular dam. And if you haven't seen it, please go through it. Otherwise, please revise it. That's what I strongly recommend. And let's move on to the next article. It is regarding that is after UAE, Pakistan offers help to flood hit Kerala. Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan on Thursday offered to help flood hit Kerala. The Pakistani leader's comments came in the backdrop of growing criticism of the Indian government's decision to decline foreign aid for flood relief and rehabilitation in the state. Islamabad's comment, that is Islamabad's statement, came a day after India said it would depend on domestic resources for providing short and long-term help in Kerala. In line with the existing policy, the government is committed to meeting the requirements for relief and rehabilitation through domestic efforts. That's what the Ministry of External Affairs spokesperson said on Wednesday. However, India's decision to decline aid from the abroad drew criticism from the veteran diplomats and officials who said that central government should have been more considerate regarding the offer of support from the Gulf countries, especially from the UAE that has offered rupees 700 crore. As a country, we can rather take assistance, but 80% Indians in the Gulf are from Kerala, that is Malayalis. Offer of flood relief assistance from the region must be treated with sensitivity. Saying no is simple, but for Kerala in crisis, it's not going to be simple. That's what the former Foreign Secretary Nirupama Rao said, who is also from Kerala. So, some diplomats have, however, maintained that the issue of aid for Kerala should be resolved through internal consultation at the earliest to avoid a long-term fallout. It appears that the offer from UAE came without prior consultation with India. That's what another former Foreign Secretary Kanival Sibel has said. And let's now look into what the former National Security Advisor and the ex-Foreign Secretary Shiv Shankar Menon, who is also from Kerala, has said. So he he made a distinction between the foreign support for immediate relief and long-term rehabilitation. So relief and rehabilitation, he made a distinction was made in the 2004 decision was not to accept foreign participation in relief but accept it for long-term rehabilitation case by case. That's what Mr. Menon said, elaborating that the rescue teams in Kerala required no foreign help, but such help could be utilized for rebuilding houses, bridges, and roads. Anyway, that sounds to be something really positive, or something different from what other ex-diplomats have said. So let's look into what will happen. Anyway, I'm hoping for the best for Kerala. That's for all about that particular article. We are moving on to the next one. It is regarding the EPFO data. So EPFO data, not the gauge right gauge of employment level. So the recent downward revision of the Employees Provident Fund organization data for September to June does not imply a decrease in the formal sector employment, according to the labor economist, who add that there are several problems with the EPFO data and caution against its gauge as a formal sectoral employment in the country. So from the figure, it is clear that the blue colored one is a data released in May, and the red is in June, and the last one is in August, was released in August. And there is a steady decline as the figure shows. And how the new goods and service tax regime created a certain incentive for many smaller enterprises to register themselves on the GST network, and so they may have registered under EPFO as well. That's what an expert has said. Thus, these are not new jobs that were created. It simply implies that they have newly registered under the EPFO. Changes in the EPFO numbers are not always indicative of a change in the employment levels, since there are several reasons why EPFO numbers might change without a corresponding change in the employment. That's what the director of the Center for Monitoring Indian Economy has said. Some examples are a worker quitting their job to start their new company, a worker being transferred to a foreign branch of an Indian company, employees retiring, and employees quitting once they are married. Of these examples, only the last two affect, that is employees retiring and employees quitting once they are married. Only these two have effect on employment levels. That's what he has said. And the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council member Surjit Bhalla, while saying that the EPFO numbers are a good indicator for the formal employment as well as the changes in the employment, added that there are certain drawbacks. For example, a company employing 19 may not be in the EPFO, but as soon as it adds one more employee, all 20 are added in the EPFO. That's what he has said. But the actual increase in the employment has only been a single person. There are about 6 crore active members with at least 1 month of contributions in the year. So if you have a 5 lakh reduction in the estimate, that's not a big deal. That's what he has said. So anyway, the things to be noted here is how what all cases will cause a slight change in the employment levels, especially with regard to this EPFO data, and also the what Surjit Bhalla has said, because only even though the real increase in the employment may be a single person, there can be it can be sometimes misleading, because already there are in the case mentioned here, for a company that employs 19 people may not be registered in EPFO, but as soon as it employs one more employee, all employees are added. So actually only one employee is added, but it sounds like there are 20 more. So it can be sometimes misleading. That's what this article says. So that's all important about that. We are moving on to the next one. US-China swap tariffs on billions in commodities. The US slapped steep tariffs on another $16 billion on Chinese goods on Thursday, triggering a swift tit-for-tat retaliation from the Beijing, even as the negotiator from the both sides seeks to soothe the trade tensions. The escalation came as the world's two largest economies hold their first formal discussion since the June on spiraling trade war. Mr. Trump has pushed aggressive trade actions to lower the US trade deficit, But the US trading partners have retaliated aggressively, which is hurting the American farmers and manufacturers and consumers. Still pending is the possibility of new duties on another $200 billion in Chinese goods, which are the subject of public hearing this week, as well as Mr. Trump's proposed 25% tax on all auto imports is also likely to protect the US car industry. So altogether, Trump has been always touted as someone who's a spokesperson of an anti-globalization kind of thing. So definitely this adds more worry to the global equations of trade. And also, what another point to be noted here is China has devalued its currency so as to negate the effects of this tariffs and all that. And yesterday we analyzed that this has made all US consumers uh, pay a lot of pay a lot more to gain the same kind of goods. So that's all important about that. Moving on to the next one, SEBI to review the MF expense ratio limits. The MF stands for mutual fund, and Securities and Exchange Board of India might soon review the expense ratio limits for mutual funds to address the concerns relating to concentration of profits among a few large fund houses. The SEBI chief made the statement in the context of the fact that revenue of the seven large fund houses exceeds 60% of the total industry revenue, while the profit margin of the large mutual fund is in the range of 40 to 50%. Expense ratio, here it is, the title itself says expense ratio, and definitely the question arises, what exactly is this expense ratio? So expense ratio, which broadly ranges between 0.75 to 2.5%, is the fee that the fund houses charge investors to manage all the expenses of the fund houses. So the SEBI chairman also said that the fund houses should maintain an arm's length relationship with respect to the related party investment to avoid any conflict of interest. Some recent cases, the details of which I need not get into, do not guide well with the public service character of the industry and have to be avoided at all cost. An arm's length relationship with respect to the related party investment, as also avoiding the conflict of interest, is the need of the hour. That's what the SEBI chief has said. Anyway, that's all important about that. And please look into what exactly is the mutual fund industry and how this is going to affect it. That's all important about that. And we are moving on to the next article. It is regarding National Company Law Tribunal, about which I will be discussing in the later slide. So many big corporate debtors with loans collectively exceeding 70,000 crore rupees are likely to be headed to the National Company Law Tribunal next week for resolution, as the deadline set by the RBI for the banks to resolve the cases expires on August 2017. August 27, 2018. So we are working on 7 accounts amounting to 70,000 crore. Let's see what happens. We still have some time. On August 27 may not be a relevant date for all those accounts. That's what a member of the SBI-led consortium said on the sidelines of the industry event on the IBC, that is in Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. So that's all important about that. Let's see what Moody has said about India's growth rate. Indian economy is expected to grow by about 7.5% in 2018 and 2019, as it is largely resilient to the external pressures like those from higher oil prices. That's what the credit rating agency has said. Growth prospects for many of the G20 economies remain solid, but there are indications that the synchronous acceleration of growth heading to 2018 is now giving way to the divergent trends. The near term global outlook for most advanced economies is broadly resilient, in contrast to the weakening of some developed economies in the face of emerging emerging headwinds arising especially from the US trade war, protectionism, and the tightening of external liquidity conditions, and etc. So it largely says that India will grow at a 7.5% in 2018, and India is largely resilient to the global headwinds and all that. And altogether, the growth prospect of G20 economies are remaining solid, but there are indications that uh, the acceleration of the growth of the economy when heading to 2018 is now giving diverging trends, especially with regards to those countries that are affected by the trade war and all that. So that's all important about this. Anyway, what I like to additionally recommend in terms of this article is that how credit rating agencies are influencing, or to what extent they are likely to influence the investors decision or investment decisions on a global perspective. And also please look into what are the kind of methodologies that these credit agencies use. So that's all important about that, and we are moving on to the last article regarding today. So flood damage may slash India's coffee output by 20%. Earlier, India's coffee production in 2018-19 is likely to fall, but by at least one-fifth from a year earlier, as the floods in the key producing states damaged the crops and delayed the exports. That's what an industry official told Reuters. So earlier we were expecting better crop this year. Uh, Now we are expecting at least 20% drop in the production. That's what the Coffee Exporters Association has said. Several crop loss was reported in the coffee growing areas in Kudagu in Karnataka and Wayanad in Kerala, while the Chikmagalur and Hassan districts of Karnataka also reported damage on a limited scale. So that's important about this particular article. We are moving on to the next one. As I promised before, I'll be going deep into National Company Law Tribunal. So it is a statutory body that is established under Section 48 of the Companies Act of 2013, and most of the powers of the Company Law Tribunal under the whole portion explains what are the powers of the NCLT, and most of the powers of the Company Law Board under the Companies Act of 1956 are still there with the National Company Law Tribunal, and all the powers of the BIFR, that is Board of Industrial and Financial Reconstruction, for revival and rehabilitation of sick industry companies. All such powers are also within the Company Law Tribunal, and the powers of a High Court in the matters of mergers, demergers, and amalgamations, winding up, etc. These are also being given to National Company Law Tribunal, and power to order repayment of deposit accepted by NBFCs as provided in the section 45QA of the RBI Act. So, in short, the power to order repayment of deposit by NBFCs is also given to in National Company Law Tribunal, and the power to wind up companies, as I mentioned here, the mergers, demergers, amalgamations, and winding up. Definitely, such powers is also given to NCLT, and power to review its own orders. And please note, this can be a tricky part. Power to review its own orders. So, National Company Law Tribunal has jurisdiction of the Board of Industrial and Financial Reconstruction. It was a earlier body. Now, I don't think now it is still existing. And the Appellate Authority for Industrial and Financial Reconstruction. That's another body that existed under the Companies Act of 1956. And Company Law Board, High Courts relating to compromises, arrangements, mergers, amalgamations, and all that. And the text, even though it seems a bit heavy, please go through it. And if you want, you can pause the video, take a screenshot, or keep it, and please look into this particular thing. That's all important about that. And let's see what the National Statistical Commission is all about. And we have been reading articles regarding the PAC series GDP data and all that. So this commission is an advisory council on all statistical matters set up to enhance the public trust in official statistics. It was established in 2006 based on the recommendation of the C. Rangarajan Commission. Please note, the C. Rangarajan Commission, to reduce the problems faced by the statistical agencies in the country in relation to the collection of data. The Chief Executive Officer of the Niti Aayog, that is National Institution for Transforming India, is also an ex officio member of the commission. Please note this, because again this can be a tricky part with regards to the prelims questions like identify the true statements for about National Statistical Commission. So this can be a tricky part. So please note that also. And by this we are winding up today's Hindu analysis. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you like this video, please hit the like button and do share it with your friends and family, so that it will be a great support for us. And you can also follow us on Telegram. You can follow us our blog. You can also visit our blog, that is www.knowledgehouse.co. And please do subscribe our channel so that you won't miss any updates from us, and we'll be coming up with more interesting and compelling videos regarding the burning issues, law, and various other aspects of UPSC syllabus. So you can support us by donating whatever you can to this particular Paytm number, and it's not mandatory, but if you feel so, you please do support us. And another way you can support us is by sharing this video as much as possible. So thank you very much for watching once again. Have a nice day. That's all for today. Bye.